From competing in glory kickboxing all the way across the world in China to clashing in the UFC, the rivalry between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira has transcended any single sport. But losing his title could actually be good for Izzy, at least according to Robert Whittaker. The former UFC middleweight champ thinks that this could take the pressure off the last stylebender, because the worst has already passed. So he's going to be somewhat free for the next one, as he has no title to lose this time. Or it could have the exact opposite effect. Izzy will definitely be worried about getting knocked out again, and that has to be at the back of his mind. Whittaker discussed this with Michael Bisping on his Believe You Me podcast, along with how their last battle went. For the Reaper, both of these guys are just phenomenal fighters, and he was especially impressed by the level of skill they showed in UFC 281. Make no mistake, it was more of a boxing match than an MMA fight, and Whittaker agrees with that. Yeah, Izzy tried some stuff on the ground, but let's be real, guys. None of them have got an amazing ground game. Not yet, anyway. The fight was amazing nonetheless, and one thing was clear to Whittaker after the fight. These are just absolute killers in the division, and I couldn't agree more. Adesanya has dominated the middleweight for a couple of years now, and no one has come close to defeating him. No guys, the Jan Blachowicz fight doesn't count. Izzy was fighting at light heavyweight, remember? But it's the stylebender show in middleweight. Or it was until Pereira showed up. Even then, Adesanya displayed some amazing skill against his old pal. He rocked the Brazilian in the very first round, and the fight would have ended there if he wasn't saved by the bell. After that, Izzy went on the take round after round, and by the end of the fourth, it was clear who was going to win. But then, Powhatan walked in there as a man possessed, with only one thought in his head: knock out Adesanya, and he did. Pereira held on through the rounds, giving them up just so he could finish it on his terms. After his title win, the Powhatan revealed that at the end of the fourth round, he asked his corner what he needed to do to win. Glover Teixeira, who was there by his side, told him the only way he could do that is if he could knock Izzy out. You've gotta love a guy who can switch it up when the pressure's on. True champion mentality, if you ask me. But of course, Adesanya wasn't going to let it go. In fact, he has agreed to an immediate rematch. See, with a guy like Adesanya, that was expected. He isn't afraid to fight Pereira a fourth time, knowing that he lost every single one of his 3 matches so far. Hold on, didn't they fight only once in the UFC? They did, but they also first fought in the Glory Kickboxing Tournament, and Pereira managed to win both of their matches there. The first one was to a decision. The second one was a knockout. And that was really significant because no one, and I mean no one, has been able to knock Izzy out cold ever. These two are going to be at it once again at UFC 287 on April 8th. Stylistically and skill-wise, Adesanya might look like a better fighter. He even looked better the last time these both met. But Pereira definitely has a huge physical advantage over him, and on most of the guys in middleweight for that matter. Even Whittaker agrees with that. He told Bisping how big Adesanya actually is. The camera doesn't even come close to doing justice to his size. But then comes Pereira, who has a completely massive bone structure. His hands, feet, and head are just so much bigger than Adesanya's. And not to forget about how hard that guy can punch. I mean, knocking Izzy out twice? He's called the Powhatan for a reason. The man really has got stone hands. But that really doesn't stop Bobby Knuckles from wanting to fight for the title. He doesn't care how big Pereira is or how many times Adesanya has beaten him. He's still going to get up and go for that belt no matter what. Right now, he's ranked as the #2 middleweight contender in the UFC. And from the looks of it, he'll be the one who's going to challenge the winner of UFC 287 for the title. Right now, he's working on getting himself to a whole new level in preparation for his possible title fight. If you guys don't remember, Whitaker already lost twice to the last stylebender, so he kind of knows how it feels to go up against the guy who seemingly has your number. But he still believes that he's a more complete MMA fighter than either of those guys. He has got a much better ground game as compared to either Adesanya or Pereira. That doesn't mean Izzy is a pushover. He's got one of the most unique styles in the UFC. You've got to love Izzy for his entrances and his celebrations. His theatrics are just wild, and he seems to pull them off almost effortlessly. But his skills inside the octagon aren't a joke either. Some people may call him boring, but they're probably just casual fans who don't really know the techniques that go into competitive mixed martial arts. The best thing I love about the last stylebender is his feints. He does that so often that you can only imagine it switches off all the warning signals in his opponent's head. You might have noticed how often he fakes his jab. This might not seem like much at first, but I can guarantee you, the longer he keeps doing this, it becomes more difficult for his opponent to predict when the real thing is going to come at them. And that's not all either. Another thing he does is that right hip feint. This might look like he's throwing a kick, but the same movement can also be used to set up a cross or a right hook. Then, of course, there are numerous strikes that he has mastered. The Brazilian kick, for example, in which he mimics a body kick at first, only to whip it up and land it on the head. This just makes it impossible for anyone to read him. Most fighters cannot react to him in time, and he ends up landing some devastating strikes before they even register what's happening. That's why some people are favoring him in the rematch against Pereira. The newly crowned king of the light heavyweight, Jamal Hill, for one, thinks Izzy is going to take it this time. And for a good reason. I mean, Adesanya was winning the fight after all. He had the Brazilian under complete control right up to the moment Alex caught him with a low kick. Hill told the Schmo that the Powhatan was getting his ass whooped for the majority of the fight. The comment came after Pereira teased a move up to the light heavyweight division to avenge his old friend and mentor Glover Teixeira. Izzy should be his focus for now, not Jamal Hill, not Khamzat Chimaev. But John McCarthy thinks that it's going to be a mental challenge for the former champion. Of course, the 3 losses will weigh heavily at the back of his mind. That's not just something you can forget, especially leading up to a title fight. All we can do for now is wait and see if Izzy can claim back the title he held onto for 3 years. Or will Pereira be the kryptonite to the last stylebender, as he has proven to be so far? That's all the latest on Adesanya and Pereira. See you in the next one.